Here's everything I got right and wrong for the best and worst bets of Game 3 in the Finals 2026. Betting on the Knicks is not a good idea. Betting on the Spurs would be better, and doing both the Spurs winning Game 3 and the Knicks winning the Finals overall would have even been a better idea than winning the Knicks. I said that I truly believe that the Spurs had a higher chance of winning Game 3 specifically than they did the whole entire Finals overall. So that's the first thing that I got correct, and I still stand by everything that I said. I do think that the likelihood of them winning yesterday, and considering it wasn't that far off, the deficit wasn't crazy, and with the reffing that was going in place, how ridiculous everything was, I truly and honestly believe that the Knicks still have a really good shot. And in all honesty, the Knicks were underperforming. There was a lot of missed shots. There was a lot of bad players. There was a lot of times where I saw something and I went, God, why are they missing so much? It just felt like every chance they had in the fourth quarter to recover, they were just not recovering. So even though the refereeing was terrible and it was insanely rigged and everyone was fucking losing their minds online as well while the game was going on and everyone was fucking fuming. I mean, I'm going to get onto the refereeing later and how fucking ridiculous it was. But, you know, I honestly think that the Knicks still have a chance to win. And if they pick it back up to the same sort of momentum that they had Game 1 and 2, they'll be fine. So I still stand by what I said in regards to the future. Now, I was correct about Wemby making a low amount of rebounds, and it being potentially, betting on under 12 or under 10 or something like that. And he made 8, which is the exact amount of rebounds he made in Game 2. He played mostly offensively and focused on that offense, and that seems to be the theme that he's going with. The Spurs are reeling back on their defense because their defense is not strong enough in regards to the Knicks' offense to really outweigh them and win the game. It's not going to be solely their defense that's going to bring them along. So that's another thing. Another thing that I was correct about was Brunson making 30 plus points. He made 32 points. There was one time in the night where I was prepared for me to be wrong on this count, simply because he was getting fouled a lot. He had less time than OG Anunoby on the court. They were calling fouls on him as well, saying that he was committing with these fouls to other players, very small things, really small, inconceivably fucking tiny things that they were calling him on, and then he would just get charged and some guy would throw him to the floor, and he would get fucking pushed on the back of the neck by Wemby and shit. It was such a dirty game, but the fact he still made 30 plus points really shows my confidence in him, and the combined bet of him and Towns making that many points. Let's actually check the box office score. Let's see what we have here. And I'm sorry I didn't check. So yeah, I mean, he made 11 points, right? And Brunson made 32 points. So the 50 plus wouldn't have gone through. So that would have been wrong. I'm sorry, I'm back. I just checked the box office score. So I was wrong with the potential 50 plus points between Brunson and Towns. I do think Towns underperformed in points like crazy. I mean, I'm pretty sure he got 2-3 more points in than he did in rebounds. So he wasn't making that many points. Again, he wasn't on the court that much. Mikal Bridges underperformed as well, but Brunson was still putting up the points. I think the team overall really struggled. I mean, you had the Brunson and one, which was highly impressive. But anyway, another thing that I got right was I made a very small passing comment on Shamet and other players potentially having higher time. I'm betting on the time of those players, but also the more rotation players on the Spurs not being in the game as much. You had a lot of their main players on and way less of their rotation players were really in the game. Some of them you didn't even see. So I was correct in that. They're really focusing on their main guys, pushing them to the limit, and going really offensively. And that just seems to be the only way the Spurs could possibly win the championship, is genuinely just only their main best players pushing them to the limit, giving them little bits of rest at the end of quarters, except for the fourth quarter where they go full fucking tilt, and then just going really heavy on offense because defense isn't going to save them this time. The one thing that I was wrong about, and the biggest thing that I was wrong about, and even though this has no ties to any like bets that I recommended or anything that I said would be a good bet, was I made a comment where I said I believe that the reffing is going to be better because we're not going to have the Israeli chud, and we're not going to, have much bad reffing because there was a lot of backlash for game 1 and 2. I mean, apparently touching this guy's hair is a foul. This guy's long ass hair, his fucking luscious locks, that's a fucking foul. And like there was so much bullshit with the reffing, and I genuinely, truly and honestly thought that they were going to have a more fair ref, and it was going to be a lot more even. I mean, you can look at how many, free throws were taken by the Spurs in the second half of the game compared to the Knicks. I mean, it was like 3-4 times the amount. So, yeah, that was ridiculous. It was absolutely ridiculous. That was something I was completely wrong about. Luckily, that didn't affect any of my bets, but I do think that would have brought down the Knicks in other stats, made things more difficult, and therefore had an effect on how much time each player had on the floor and so on. But I mean, there were so many ridiculous things. I mean, the three main things that I will four main things I'll highlight is Wembanyama grabbing the back of Brunson's head and pushing him down to the ground. Ridiculous. Absolutely fucking ridiculous. You had that one guy charging into, I can't remember who it was, but charging into Brunson. And then you had when the Spurs had 6 guys on the court at once. And then the possession went to the Knicks as well. Went to the Spurs. So that was absolutely ridiculous. Just outright cheating and terrible reffing. And that was something that I was completely wrong about. And I do think that had an effect on the other stats. Especially, for example, Karl Anthony Towns making points and so on. And it just really affected the game and got in the way from so many different angles. It really affected the game and changed the game and changed what was going on. So that's something that was absolutely like fucking ridiculous. One of the worst reffing I've seen. It was at a point where I was like, no matter how much the Knicks kept closing the distance and taking the lead, I mean, I'm pretty sure they only were able to take the lead. It was like a 50 points. Well, not the lead, obviously, but I think it was when they made about 50 points with like 2-3 minutes left in the second quarter, something like that from my memory. Maybe I'm wrong, but they started off behind. They were having a rough night, but they still could have made it. I mean, the Spurs made more free throws than the Knicks were given. And they kept getting like the most insane fouls, and it was just ridiculous. And I know it's like a whole media thing, and they want to get more out of this series than just a straight sweep of 4 games, because this game was extremely important. But the reffing was just terrible, and that was something that I just wasn't ready for. I didn't think it was going to be that blatant. Realistically, I should have thought about that, especially because I knew and was adamant that, if the Spurs lost this game, the series would be completely over for them. I mean, that's why I said if you're going to bet on the Knicks winning, this game, you might as well just bet on them winning the whole entire championship and put more money towards that. Because there was no reason for you to bet on the Knicks winning if you're not going to bet on them winning the championship. But ridiculous game. Reffing was absolutely horrible. And I just couldn't believe that in a finals game, the reffing was at that quality and it was that ridiculous. But I do think the Knicks will be able to pick it up, and they know that they've got the odds against them, but they are just the better team overall. They know what's going on. And at the end of the day, if they had better accuracy and made more of those shots, kept to the same pace and momentum that they've been having in the past, they could have very much easily still won, even though it's against them. But it's difficult. But that's the thing as well, as the Spurs don't need to play as well as the Knicks do by far to win if the refs are going to continue to be this way. But we'll just have to wait and see. But I do think they are trying to push for probably Game 6. So the next game, the refs are probably going to also be kind of bad, so that they can try and force a Game 6, maybe even to a Game 7. Get a 3-3. So yeah, we don't really know, but I'm gonna be distraught if it ends up being that way. I think that's insane, and it was one of the worst referees I've seen in quite a while, and especially on a game of that high of an impact. So yeah.